Without data, you are just another person with an opinion. You might have a gut feeling about a form that might not be working on your website, or you think that your video marketing is working for you, but you don't know unless you can prove it, because without having some facts to back up your arguments, it's really difficult to get budgets signed off or people to understand what you're trying to do when you're just saying, you know, I've got a gut feeling, or I think this is going to be happen. That doesn't really wash with the people that sign our checks. So just to phrase this in terms of what people are actually doing on your website, analytics is awesome, but it is a proxy for people. All of those different data points that you see are a reflection of an action that somebody's doing something on your website. But how do you know that your website's working for you, or your app for that instance? So if you think about what Google Analytics already gives us, we can find out if you've turned your toggles on in your property settings and you've turned on the demographics report, you can actually find out how old the people are that are coming to your website. And that's going to be really interesting insights, so that you can further refine and geo-target and demographically target people on platforms like Facebook or Twitter or AdWords, where you can actually work out which age groups are actually doing the conversions for you. So you're not just saying anybody over 16 with a pulse. It gives you the location, so you can start to drill down by your goals and by your revenue. Where are you getting those sales? There's never 100% in people for this, and it is slightly not 100%, as I said. You might be thinking, well, how does Google know this? Google's got a lot of data. And if you think about all of the clickstream data that they've got from people going onto different websites, when you're logged into Gmail and you're moving around on the web, you're leaving a digital footprint. And unless you've opted out to this and are cloaking everything and deleting your cookies, then that information is going to be passed on anonymously, because there's no personal identifiable information in here. There's another report as well in Google, which is under the Audience User Explorer report. Now, this will show you a person's client ID. Now, this is the random number that Google will assign a user when they go on your website or app, and you can drill down and understand what this particular user's doing. Now, I don't know what this person's called, I don't know their name, I don't know where they're from, because that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that in analytics, but it does give me an idea of the user flows that users are having on my website, where they came from, what they were doing, how long they were there, and that can start to build up a bit of a tapestry in terms of what my users are doing. We've then got the behavior report. So audience is all about who's going to your website. Acquisition is how they get there. And then the behavior is all the reporting in terms of what do people do when they're actually on your website. Now, in this report, you've got your all pages report, where you can see the pages that people went to, the average time on the page, the bounce rate, how much that page is worth to you, but it doesn't tell you anything else. So let's take the British Red Cross for an example. I'm hoping you've all heard of the British Red Cross. If you wanted to understand what users were doing on this particular web page, I don't know if anybody actually scrolls down to the bottom of the page. I don't know if they're clicking on those little tabs to find your nearest fundraising event. I don't know if people are clicking through the images. I don't know if somebody's clicked the accessibility buttons. I don't know if they've clicked a telephone number. I don't know if they've clicked an email address. All of that is empty, because Google doesn't know what you want. So you've got to think about your particular website, and you've got to think that your users have a journey in how they interact with those website pages, and you want to understand what's going on there. And that information for me is like a gold mine of information. And we're going to talk a little bit about some extra special bits that you can do with this event tracking. Now, it doesn't come pre-baked in. So if you go to your behavior reports, go down to the events and go to top events, if you've got a flat line, you don't have any event tracking in place. If you do have some event tracking in place, then you want to understand what's been set up. Is it set up correctly? And it was something that me and Alex were talking about just before we started this live stream. Your websites change a lot. And one mistake that I see with analytics is that people will have a really well set up analytics package, and then they adapt and change their website, and they don't move their analytics with it. So if they change a website page and something that used to fire won't fire anymore, then it's your job to go through and make iterations when it comes to your measurement plan. So Main reason why it doesn't come pre-baked in is, in the nicest way I can describe it, is you're your own special, unique little snowflake. Google doesn't know how your website is built. It doesn't know what's important to you and what you want to track, what you want to call it. So beyond the audience reports and the behavior reports and what people are doing, if you want to know anything beyond that, then that's your job. You're going to have to sort that out. Now, the process to do this is, for me, you always start with your homepage, especially because even now, I know people come in at different stages of your website, but your homepage is the big show page, isn't it? So go to your homepage and scroll down and think in your head, what have I got on this page that Google will not track by default? So using an e-commerce example here for ASOS, I've got telephone numbers at the bottom. I've got changing the language. I've got people clicking through images. I've got people scrolling down to the bottom, clicking on a login button. There's a lot of stuff that's happening on that homepage that I don't know is going on unless I set it up. I then move on to what I call the money pages. Now, money pages for you are any pages where you have a profitable customer interaction. This could be a form to fill out in. This could be somebody that downloads a PDF. This could be somebody that's downloading software or buying something. Whatever your business objectives are, you've got some pages where you're driving people to that page to do that conversion for your business. So if you go to your money pages, what are people doing? So in this instance, do I play the video? Do I select the sizes? Do I add to cart? Like, how far do I go through the form? And you just keep going and going and going on that website. Now, what I like to do is go through this process and get a load of Post-it notes and sit in a room and start grouping them into buckets, because we're going to need this when we start working out our process and our brief to tell a developer how we want this to be set up in Google Tag Manager. Now, within Google Tag Manager, and I won't get into the actual nitty-gritty part of Google Tag Manager because that is a whole beast in itself, but we're going to have to define the category, action, and label of these events. So if you think of categories as really big, broad buckets, and then the action is always the doing that is involved within that category, and then the label, what do I know, or what's the labeling process of the action that's just happened. So if you had scroll reach, for example, so you go through your home page and your money pages, and then you start to categorize or card sort all of these different actions, and you might think, great, I've got scroll, so I'm going to have a category for scroll, the action, scrolled page, that's the doing, and then the label, 25% of the page, 50, 75, 100. Let's say you've got videos, you'd have a category called video, and then the action, they watch the video and how far they watch the video, and then the label, what's the name of the video. And you're just going to keep repeating this process so that you can really understand what people are doing and making sure that you're labeling them correctly. So once you've understood your category actions and labels and you've rinsed that process through, you then want to organize this, hopefully, to your funnel, because it's going to help you make a logical sense of all those actions that people are doing. So this is one that I've made earlier, and as part of the colouring in department, I'm very, very busy doing lots and lots of templates that I'm giving away for free for people, and I'm going to be doing this event tracking process for 6 different business models. This is one that I did for a company that was selling flowers online. So we started with somebody that comes to the website and then scrolls down the page, and then we kind of worked on a process of all the actions that they were doing that Google doesn't track by default, and then giving them the labeling convention. So you can see here, we've got scrolling, they were looking at the social media accounts for the company, they started clicking on telephone numbers, and then they started going through to the register account, and then the whole order section, which for them was their big, deep money pages. Now, there's something that I've got on this document that is a little bit counterintuitive. Well, at least it is to me, working out how to do this and knowing that this is live, I'm going to get it wrong. There is an option in Google Tag Manager to help reduce your bounce rate. So if you go back to what exactly is a bounce rate, and I still love Avinash Kaushik's version of this, somebody that goes on your website page, vomits and leaves. But some pages have high bounce rates, and it's totally cool beans to have those high bounce rates, because a bounce is somebody that goes to a page and doesn't click on any other link on your website, or if they clicked on an external link, then it's going to get counted as a bounce. But then you could have somebody that goes on a web page and then scrolls down to the bottom and then submits a form application. So that's a goal. Something's happened. So you might have a high bounce rate, but they did exactly what you wanted them to do. So you can go into Google Tag Manager and say, I would like this to almost pretend to Google to say, look, that form that somebody's just submitted, could you count that as if they went to another page? I think there was something a couple of years ago now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Flora and their agency, which I can't remember their name, won Data is the New Creative. So Flora went to their agency and said, we've got a massive problem on our website, really high bounce rate, go fix it. And they could have gone, yeah, great, we'll get some videos, we'll get Jamie Oliver in, we'll cook up a storm. And instead, one of their analysts said, well, what are people doing on the page? So people were scrolling down recipes, they were printing the recipes, they were emailing them, sharing them on social media. And they highlighted some of those events as non-interactive setters, none. This is the bit where I said it's a bit not intuitive. If you want it to impact the bounce rate, you say no. And if you don't want it to impact the bounce rate, you say yes. Or at least I hope I've got that right, because that still fries my mind at times. So with Flora, when they added all these extra bits in, like printing a page, their bounce rate went down to 35%. There wasn't a problem. The website was very engaging and was doing a very good job for them. Excuse me. So what you don't want is this. So once you've gone through the process of what have I got on my website that Google isn't going to naturally track, you may end up finding something like this. Now, I see this, unfortunately, more cases than not when they have event tracking. So this was for a retailer. They had one event category. And if you saw on the previous slide, there were a lot of categories that we had there. And they just called it e-commerce. And then I said, right, well, what's the action, the doing within that category? And I had non-interaction and interaction. So I thought, okay, let's click on interaction. And they were all labeled as not set. So there was something in this grouping of date ranges, like 82, 92,000 events. This was firing every time somebody played a video, clicked on a telephone number, added to basket, filled out a form. Everything was being fired as not set. And when we picked it up with the team, they said, well, nobody ever told us what they wanted it to be called, so we just fired it. Other mistakes I see are, the category's correct, like video, and the action played video, and then the label, this is the page that it had the video on. But when you've got more than one video boxes embedded on that page, then that doesn't give me any insight into which video is happening. So your to-do list is to work out if you've got it or not. If you do have it, go through the labeling convention, and having it mapped out on an Excel document or a Google Sheets or whatever you're going to be using is just going to make this process a little bit easier, because you may also find that, and it's just human error, that somebody might have labeled for a different category, the action might be labeled the same as something else. So you're actually double counting 2 different things, but thinking they're the same. And that's always a little bit painful. So I'm going to walk you through a quick use case of how I've used event tracking to understand what people are doing for the website, and then some amazing things that you can do once you've got those data points coming in. So Mathematics Mastery is a company here in the UK, and they're a charity, they're a non-profit. They are trying to attract people from schools to go through their funnel and apply to be part of their maths program. Now, before we set up event tracking, they had, as you can see on the screen grab here, they had lots of resources which just downloaded into the browser. We had no idea if anybody was downloading them, and we didn't know which one was more popular. So we set that up as an event to be tracked. They also had, on the bottom left example here, I call them history trackers. Some people might call them something else, but this is where we had, when you tabbed through, there was different content points. We didn't know if people were actually tabbing through and getting that information. And then when it came to actually applying for anything, we had lots and lots of forms, but it was just a submit button. There was no destination thank you page. So we didn't know if anybody was signing up for the newsletter or signing up to get more information on the resources. And as we went through the website, we found there were more design elements where there was the tabbing through. Now on the apply online one, the second one across, it's really hard to see this, but there's in that lovely white text on a coloured background, there is applications at mathematicsmastery.org. That was one of their main goals, for somebody to click and go through and send an email to the team. Now, as I said before at the beginning, Google won't track that. If you've got an email that's just going to pop open, that's not a form, that's not pre-baked in. We have no idea if anybody was doing this, or logging in, or forgetting their password, or sharing on content. So there's lots and lots of examples and use cases to understand what people are doing on your site. So going back to the quote that I had at the beginning, that without data, you are just another person with an opinion. When you've redesigned a website, which is where Mathematics Mastery were, beautiful website, lovely, but then you get told, and we've all been in this situation, no more money marketing for another 2 years because you've had your website, now jog on and get on with your job. When you're able to go back to your board members and team members and start to give actual statistics to say 75% of people scroll down to the bottom of the page, but they don't go any further, and the call to action is bang on at 100. This is how many people are downloading the documents. This is how many people are using the video. It changes that conversation, and especially when you've got a usability problem where you can see that people aren't clicking through the tabs and they don't know where that email is, then budget lines start to be open, so you can start to track things a little bit more. So the result for this particular company, it actually opened up a much wider project to do a big usability study. But off the back of all the events that we created, we got a brand spanking new website where we fixed some usability holes, and they are still continuing to use event tracking. So as I said at the beginning, you have to update your measurement plan. So what we were tracking before on the old site, it meant that when we did the new website, you had to redo your events, and you had to recategorize them, and we had some things on that website that we didn't have previously, so you have to give them a name. So as you can see now, we've got lots of different event categories, and we could drill in with the action, primary resource downloaded, and then the label, what was the actual document that was downloaded. So it became really cool and really awesome, and they are continually doing this. So their final money page, which is an application form, we had an option here where we didn't really want to overwhelm people with information. So that little plus sign there, when you clicked on it, opens up. We don't know if people are opening that up to find that information. So we've got an event so that we can see if people are opening them or not, because that's got a lot of key information to see if you're eligible. And what you don't want is to have people that are going to go through the funnel, go through Salesforce and start having time with business development, and they're not eligible. So that's a waste of people's resources. So they're continually going through this process to really understand what their users are doing on their website. Now, when it comes to why you would need this and why you might want to fight for budget to do this and get a developer to come in Google Tag Manager and create it, for some people, in fact, actually, I think now for a lot of people, the way that websites are built, you need to get the event tracking done if you want to build a goal. Because when it comes to building event goals, they are specific goal types in Google Analytics. There's one that we all get and understand, which is a destination. So somebody that goes to a specific page, like a thank you page, thanks, we've got your money, thanks, you've subscribed, and that's pretty easy to set up in Google Analytics. You just need to tell them what the destination URL is. When it comes to events, things like the videos played and the button, all those things that we had in the event tracking, a lot of the time it's an event. So when you want to build it, you go into your admin and it's going to ask you, what's the category, action, and label? Now, you need to make sure that you stick to exactly what is said on the tin. Mistakes that I've seen, and again, it's just one of those human errors or just assuming that it would work. Let's say you had a category called video. You would have to write category video, not videos. If you make it a plural, this is a computer program. It just goes, computer says no, you're not having it. So you need to make sure that you go back to that list that you have with all your category, actions, and labels, and make sure that you stick exactly what you want. Now, you don't need to put all the fields in. If you have, say, 50 videos on your website and you just care if they've been played, then you just need to put in category contains or equals video, action, played video, and then you leave the label blank. If you want to create a goal for a specific video, that's when you would go in and say, oh, the label is corporate video played, or whatever you've called it. And at the bottom, you've got the little blue line that says verify this goal. So provided you've got a good 7 days worth of data from your events, then you can come in and see what's happening, and you've got a goal set up. Now you can have 20 goals in each view, so go to town and start from the top to bottom. How many people scroll down your page? How many people subscribe to your newsletter, downloaded a video, clicked on a telephone number, clicked on an email address, and then all your forms, and added to basket and things like that, and then get down to your retention and your acquisition goals. Now, one really, really super powerful thing that I really like doing, and it's kind of a, well, it's not a secret now because I'm telling all of you guys, I like to create retargeting lists using the actions from my event tracking. So if you imagine, with all the information that you've now got in Google Analytics, if you've got your event tracking and you've created goals that are going to be a mix of event goals and destination goals, you can start to build up a kind of funnel of what people are doing on your website. Now, one thing that I hate about sloppy remarketing, I go to your website, I don't do what you wanted, so you stalk me the live long day with the same pen or whatever it is that you're selling me. Now, if you think that, let's say you've got a 2% conversion rate, 98 people didn't buy, they had totally different journeys on your website. So instead of just retargeting 98 people, how about getting a segment of people that nearly bought? And if you've got event tracking, you can start building that. So imagine having, I went on your website, I played the video, I clicked through the images of the dresses, I selected a size, I selected a color, I clicked on the tab to read your reviews, and I added to basket. But the goal to buy was 0. The goal for the telephone number was 0. The goal for the email was 0. They nearly bought. Why don't you create a retargeting list for those bad boys and follow them around the web with a specific message and maybe an offer? And as you kind of start with the nearly bought, then scale back to the people that truly went on your website, vomited and left. Now, to do this, it's quite easy. Provided that you've linked your Google AdWords to your Google Analytics property, when you've built a segment in Google Analytics, there's a little triangle and it's a little bit upside down. And my kind of take on Google Analytics, if you see a little triangle, get excited, because it means you can do some fun things. So if you've built a segment, on the right hand side you've got actions. If you click on actions, there's an option here that says build audience, and if you click on that, it then takes you into the admin section, and you're just going to go in and give it a name, how long you want them in the bucket, and hit publish. And from that day, when you log into your Google AdWords, you're going to have a nice little bucket of people that are ready to go, which is beautiful. So you can all do that now. Even if you're not going to do remarketing for another year, do it so that you've got people tagged and bagged and ready to go. So you want to have something like this. You want to have all those different actions of what people are doing, so you can try and persuade them to come back and do what you want. So we've covered quite a lot. I could honestly talk about analytics all day, but I only get a small amount of time with you lovely people. So your to-do list is to go back into your Google Analytics account, and you want to see, have I got any events being fired in the first place? So if you do, then go in and check, are you tracking things correctly? Are things labeled correctly? Have you missed anything? Have you just done we're just tracking e-commerce, but we've missed out on all that other beautiful information that you can have on your website? You want to go through the process of grouping all the things that are happening on your website, from the home page to your money pages, and thinking through logically what is the category, action and label of those things. Now, as a tool that I'm sure my lovely friend Ed from Metric Mogul, so hi Ed, he's created a tool called gtmbot.io, which is an absolute godsend, because if you have basic tags, and this is free to use this tool, if you have tags, basic tags like scroll reach and telephone numbers and things like that, you just connect it to your Google Tag Manager account, and it's going to pre-build them and do what would take 6 hours in Google Tag Manager. It does it in about 5 minutes. Obviously, if you've got anything beyond that that's very bespoke, like the Red Cross example where you had the little like open check button, then you're going to need to go into a developer and get them to build those for you. So once you've got your events firing in your account, highlight are any of those events goals, and then build goals. You've got 20 to play with in Google Analytics, so go to town. And then for the extra bit of spice at the end, look at those events that you've created and your goals, and then start building retargeting lists based on the actions that people are doing to your website, and then work on strategies to find them and do more wonderful things. So I think that's me done. I don't know if there's any questions or any feedback.
Share it. I love Google Tag Manager and we use it a lot. And actually, I have one tricky question to you from an audience. Okay. So the question is, they're using Google Tag Manager and they're capturing events that are triggered by clicking on the button submit. And they only capture an event when an email was actually submitted. However, when they look at the number of unique events in Google Analytics, it doesn't match with the number of unique emails that they captured. So what do you think about that?
So depending on how the site's been built, because we had this with one of my clients, that you can still hit a submit button even if they haven't completed their email address. So if you had a form where you said, put your name, put your email, and then I hit submit, that's going to fire in Google Tag Manager. But then I might have an error to say, oh, your email's wrong or you didn't do it. So it's going to tag it. So maybe if you've got other parts of the form, scale back and see, are people repeating, or have you got, is it a usability thing where the forms, people are just clicking things too much? Because it's a computer, it's going to fire every time somebody clicks on it, regardless if they do it. So that could just be a usability thing. So just
I see.
ask some clients about that.